Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy, and thanks for joining us today, December 23rd, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feasts and Marian meditations. Well, today we have a great number of feasts. First, we have Notre Dame des Bonnes Nouvelles, Our Lady of Good Tidings or Good News in France. Now, you may be thinking, well, didn't we celebrate that not too long ago? Well, I think there's different devotions to her under that same title, but also the reason we're celebrating it today is because on December 23rd, 1563, the Bishop of Luçon, Jean-Baptiste Tierchelet, consecrated this church that we're celebrating today, under the patronage of Our Lady Notre Dame des Bonnes Nouvelles, right? So since 1563, the church has been there. But in 1818, there was a severe pandemic or epidemic plague ravaging the country. So the faithful made a vow, with the agreement of their bishop, that they would go in procession to Our Lady of Good Tidings and celebrate the feast in perpetuity of the Visitation, right, which is the chapel's feast. So they made a procession, and then the plague quickly ended. Likewise, at around that same time, a young boy started making regular visits, right, to the shrine. Now, he was a poor boy, and he had been born into a peasant family, and they were trying to do the best they could. Well, he kept the faith, and when he grew up, Jean-Baptiste Lamy was ordained a priest, and then became eventually the first Archbishop of Santa Fe, New Mexico, right? Again, numerous miracles have been attributed to Our Lady there. One particularly great miracle was on December 23rd, again, I'm talking feast day, 1720, when, as the wooden houses of the people burned down, there was a big fire, the people of Rennes saw Our Lady of Good News look down in compassion from the sky. Right? Likewise, still in France, we have Our Lady of Dardillier in Anjou, France. So many people have gone there. There's a fountain nearby, which is said to have miraculous properties, and the image housed in the shrine represents Our Lady as a Pietà that has her dead son in her arms. So Christ is dead, lying in her arms, and Christ's head is supported by an angel, right? But this is interesting, right? In 1454, a farmer who was plowing his field discovered in the ardil, meaning the clay, which is a word that will give its name, according to tradition, to Notre Dame des Ardilliers. He found this stone statue about 30 centimeters high, which represented the Pietà. Again, Our Lady having Jesus in her arms, right? So he took it home, and then he discovered that miraculously the statue returned back to its place it was discovered, right? Again, next to this fountain with miraculous properties. He did the same thing again, and so then he said, okay, forget it. We're just going to, make a shrine here for it, right? And so again, many people have gone there in the past, and also many people, there used to be a pilgrimage as well, right? And I think it's probably still continued today, but maybe with less frequency than before the French Revolution. And lastly, we'll go even further south to Maria Santissima delle Grazie in Naples, Italy, right? Today, in 1442, the statue was brought to Naples at Our Lady's request. It's an image venerated in the Church of Saint Peter Martyr at the University of Naples. So what does that mean, brought at Our Lady's request? Well, this image of Mary originally belonged to a woman from a different town, right? And one day she seemed to hear that the image said to take it to a church in Naples where it would give more graces even, right? So on December 23rd, 1442, with the picture and her belongings, she went by boat to Naples and landed at Porta di Massa, right? There was only one problem. She didn't know which church in Naples, and if you've been to Naples, there's lots of churches. She didn't know which church was the one that the image was supposed to go to. So what do? What you always do. You put it in an ox-drawn cart, and let the oxen go wherever you want them to, or wherever they want to, and they just keep going. And then, finally, when they reached the Church of St. Peter Martyr, they stopped. And so, what happened? Well, that's where they left the image, with the Dominican friars who lived there. On September 26, 1802, the image was solemnly crowned by the Holy See. And during World War II, a bomb nearly destroyed the chapel where the image was displayed, but the image was found intact among the rubble. For today's reading from The Admirable Heart of Mary by St. John Eudes, we continue with his considerations of Mary's heart as being symbolized or foreshadowed by the Garden of Eden. And today we'll talk about animals and birds that he says are found in the garden. And now I go on to another subject to be envisioned in the earthly paradise. In the second chapter of Genesis, we read that God brought to the first man the animals and the birds that he had created, that Adam might give them suitable names, as a sign of his dominion over them and of their dependence on him. Several learned doctors are of the opinion that Adam offered some of the animals to God in sacrifice at that time. We may now ask if any of the qualities of the heart of the Queen of Heaven have been symbolized by such humble things as animals and birds. Yes, and this should not surprise you, since her Son, who is God himself, willed to be represented by oxen, sheep, lambs, and several other beasts, which, under the old law, were sacrificed to God. What then is represented by the animals and birds subjected by God to the dominion of Adam in paradise? They represent the natural passions that have their seat in the corporeal and physical heart of man. These passions are of two kinds, that is, the more earthly and animal instincts, such as anger, hatred, fear, sadness, aversion, distrust, which are represented by the animals, and the more spiritual emotions, such as love, desire, hope, courage, and joy, typified by the birds. All these passions existed, as we have seen, in the heart of the Blessed Virgin Mary, just as they are found in the hearts of all the children of Adam. But she enjoyed the great privilege that in her heart they were completely subject to reason, just as the savage beasts were under the complete control of Adam in the earthly paradise. The Spirit of Christ, the new man, reigned so perfectly in Mary's heart, and so absolutely ruled her passions, that they never experienced any motivation contrary to the will of God. She never employed them except under the guidance of God's Holy Spirit and for the glory of His divine majesty. She never loved anything besides God. She never desired anything except to please Him. She feared nothing save to displease Him. All the difficult tasks she undertook were accomplished in His service and for His glory, the sole cause of her joy. Even as the offense and dishonor afforded Him by sin were the only motives of her hatred, her aversion, and her anger. So truly were her natural passions uplifted and almost annihilated towards the world and all worldly objects and concerns, even with regard to herself and her own interests, that her emotions existed and vibrated only for what was pleasing to Him who possessed, animated, and directed them in all thoughts. From this we learn that the heart of the Blessed Virgin Mary was truly the earthly paradise, in which there was no war, trouble, or disorder of any kind, but peace, tranquility, and marvelous order, combined with ceaseless praise and adoration of the God who had established His throne in this paradise. All her passions, being entirely subject to reason and the Spirit of God, and perfectly blended together, blessed and praised Him with admirable harmony in the variety of their distinct motions, uses, and functions. They were all guided by the same Spirit, and all directed towards the same end, to glorify the divine majesty. For today's Marian meditation, taken from the book by Father Ildefonso Villar, we continue with Meditation 20, the Annunciation, and this time Father Villar is focusing particularly on Our Lady's retirement, meaning her interior life. The second point is Mary as a model. How Mary loved retirement in her little house. Nobody sees her. No one is aware of what she is doing. But God is pleased with that recollection, and there He goes to meet her. The angel does not appear in the street, in the squares, not even publicly in the temple, but only in the solitude and retirement of Nazareth. It is there that Mary feels herself to be wholly and exclusively God's, and God is wholly hers. There, without witnesses, the great and intimate communications between God and Mary take place. There, the great mystery of the Incarnation is brought about. Her retirement is definite. If she goes out of her home, it is for the sake of charity, as at the visitation, or in the spirit of obedience, as when she goes to Bethlehem, to Egypt, or to the Temple of Jerusalem. She would never indulge in touring for recreation or as a mere pastime. Watch her in the street, and see her interior recollection as shown by her in her demeanor, in her eyes. Be present at the visits she makes. Mark her actions. Attend to her conversations. Listen to the words that fall from her mouth. Convinced that she is God's temple, she is not carried away by social life. Even in the midst of the world, she never abandons her interior recollection. Look at her busy at home. Even in those days when the work is most pressing, she knows how to sanctify it in the presence of God, whose sight she never loses. Everything helps to increase the intensity of her already intense interior life.
Hello, and we hope that you enjoyed listening to our Marian podcast. In the spirit of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, we say to you that there is no greater delight than to spread the devotion of Our Lady. We hope you share these sentiments and encourage you greatly to share with a loved one. Know that you are always in our prayers, and we ask that you keep us in yours. God bless.